Hi everyone, and thanks for everybody who has subscribed to my channel. I'm very appreciative. If you haven't, please do, so you'll be notified when my new videos are posted. And thanks to everybody who continues to share my videos, and I'm very grateful for all the comments also. Today I want to speak about the fallout from the phone call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin that took place yesterday. A 90-minute conversation took place declaring that they're both looking for peace, and Trump is looking to end the war in Ukraine. Now, this has hit many European leaders, and particularly Micheal Martin and Simon Harris here in Ireland. I think their heads are really going to explode with what's going on. And the reaction is telling. And I'll explain that in a few minutes around Micheal Martin and Simon Harris and the European political leaders who are doubling down on more war and showing their real hawkish, warmongering qualities. Now, following the conversation between Trump and Putin, and it's interesting because Biden never spoke to Putin over the last number of years, and Trump is only in office a number of weeks, and yet this is looking like it's going to be a peace settlement negotiated. But we wait and see how that develops over the next period of time. And what's important with this is that this comes on the back of a release of a US citizen, Mike Vogel, and the arrival into Moscow by Steve Witkoff. He's a millionaire friend of Donald Trump. And following that diplomacy, the announcement was made around the forthcoming peace negotiations. Now, this comes with a backdrop of the Munich Security Conference, which has been held, and we saw the horrific attack by an Afghani national yesterday in Munich, and it comes on the back of a numerous amount of attacks we've seen across Europe and here in Ireland in the last number of weeks. Now, what's very interesting with this is that part of these negotiations and deals will be no NATO for Ukraine. So the warmongers are up in arms over this, and also no taking back of Crimea, which was annexed before 2014. And also we've seen the issues around the no return to what happened in advance of that as well. Now, currently Russia have about 20% of Ukrainian territory. And of course we know this has been NATO and the US's proxy war. We know about the involvement of the Biden family in Ukraine in particular. And we've seen the European project, for instance, and for many years talking about the balkanization of Russia. Now, what's important with this to note is that they've done and commissioned a lot of reports through the European Union about breaking up the Russian Federation in terms of access to the resources, the services, the minerals in that region. Now, this is very important because he won't tell you this in Ireland, and this is what's important. The mainstream media are up in arms over this. If you look at any sort of mainstream media in Ireland, they're going absolutely off the wall at any concept of a peace, because over 1.5 million people have been killed in that horrific, brutal war that should have never happened in the first place if the Minsk Accords were properly stood by. But of course we've seen the conversations come out from people like Angela Merkel, and also we've seen Francois Hollande also saying that these were all a ruse used to build up the Ukrainian forces looking for a future confrontation. And of course it's always ordinary people, the ones that suffer and die in wars. And in the context of what's gone on, it's important to note that this is Trump's conscious decoupling from the European Union in his looming trade war with Europe. And also he said it's all about the money from that's not being funded through Europe. And this comes on the back of what Trump said a number of years ago when he was president the first time, when he said there has been more increase in military budgets. Now, this is interesting because this is what the European leaders are trying to do, to increase their militarization in the European Union, to increase their budgets, cut back on basic public services and public spending around health and housing. And this has come from a lot of the European leaders. It's come from von der Leyen. It's also come from von der Leyen, the unelected leader of the European Union. Of course, we've seen ourselves in a situation where we have Donald Tusk as well, who's been pushing more war, who's currently European president. Micheal Martin, of course, is looking forward to that position at the end of 2026. And they had a meeting in Dublin Castle to that event yesterday about organising their plans for the European presidency. And what's also interesting is we have Kaja Kallas, the European High Commissioner, who has been pushing more war as well. So let's see how this develops over the next period of time, and especially in the context of the Munich Security Conference, which is taking place today. And of course, Macron has come back and said this will be a capitulation and I won't be looking towards a just peace. Just lunacy. Just lunacy. Not one of these out of touch and really privileged leaders would be putting themselves in a firing line to be killed in a war. Of course, it's ordinary people, the ones that die for their misdeeds and misgivings and their power-hungry, relentless drive towards pushing their neoliberal agenda, whether it's in Europe, and we've seen the devastation of that in particular in Ireland. But Micheal Martin's response has been telling, because Micheal Martin will be attending the Munich Security Conference now as a neutral country and looking for peace. And in their constitution, Pacific settlements, international disputes is in their constitution. But of course, Micheal Martin is a wannabe warmonger and warhawk, and is just a yes man for the European establishment, much the same as Simon Harris and his lackeys who have signed up to this programme for government, the so-called independents led by Lowry, who, when Micheal Martin was talking about a pro-European party, this is what it's all about, pushing the open free market, the neoliberal approach to more devastation we've seen with homelessness, housing, and all the crises we've seen through the European Union and the centralising of power. And also we've seen that through the drive towards more militarism and using more of our budgets towards beefing up our military and the push towards NATO. This really has ramifications for NATO as well in terms of Trump's comments over the last day or so. And he said that the security risks are real for Ireland. And he said that there's a very real sense of threat. This is what they're going to ramp up over the next period of time, to say there's more threat. Build more, get involved in more of the military-industrial complex, and also there's going to be cyber and hybrid threats to Ireland as well. Now, of course, this comes in the back of what happened a number of years ago with the HSE, for instance, with that cyber attack on the HSE that put that out of commission for a period of time. But that was, of course, a Russian criminal gang. But they won't tell you that. They'll tell you that this came from an existential threat, which they're going to push at people. But, of course, they need to have a bogeyman, an enemy, rather than actually focus on perhaps the enemy within that we're facing because of their policies. So while people will suffer and struggle to get by across the European Union, over 450 million people that live in the European Union, and with the immigration chaos as well, we've seen because of Ukraine, 1.5 billion this year will be spent in Ireland because of the fallout of the immigration chaos for Ukrainian refugees that have come to Ireland, well over 120,000 that have come to Ireland, probably one of the highest percentage per capita across the European Union. But the Irish leaders have always been the yes men for Brussels. They've landed us with the huge bank bailout that devastated so many people in our society with devastating austerity. We've seen that, for instance, we've seen the fallout of it today. We've also seen it with the treaties where we had to go back and vote again because we didn't give the right answer to the Irish political leaders and their masters in Brussels. And also what's interesting is the erosion of Irish neutrality. And this is very important because they're trying to erode the triple lock. They're trying to push us towards more militarist union. And this has always been the agenda of the warmongers in the European Union, in particular van der Leyen and many of them. And it's to move into a wartime footing and perhaps a future confrontation with Russia, which is absolutely just lunacy. When you think Europe should have been started as a peace project, and they keep talking about that it's a peace project, but the fallout, we're seeing it day by day by day in Ireland. As I said, with the immigration chaos and the way that's caused big issues for people here in Ireland, in particular the working class, most of all, that have lack of access to basic services such as housing, health, many more struggles in Irish society, while the wealthier in Irish society get wealthier day by day by day. I'm sure many private equity firms will be licking their lips at the prospect of more war. So let's see how this security conference develops in Munich. But Micheal Martin, of course, just pathetic, idiotic leaders. And not to mention the energy crisis as well, costs us more higher energies. But it shows you the lack of vision of any of these political leaders to build strong domestic economies, and really to build strong, resilient domestic economies where we have proper energy security in terms of resources. But of course, the Irish government were too willing to sell off all our resources and privatise them through their neoliberal European agenda, rather than serving the interests of the people here domestically. And now, who's left holding the baby? The pathetic Irish leaders. And who's going to feel the fallout? Ordinary people. So claim the threat, claim the bogeyman, and cue the propaganda with all their mainstream media propagandists. They'll be pushing this relentlessly down people's throats over the next number of days and weeks and months to come. So thanks for the support of my video. Really appreciate them. And very grateful for everybody who continues to subscribe to my channel. And please keep speaking out. And if you have a voice, use it as well. And I'm very grateful for all your support. So please share my videos also. So from Dublin, Salam. See you all soon. Take care.